My name is Charlie. Welcome to my channel. I'm here with my son Dylan today, and we were going to learn a bit about the game Five Nights at Freddy's, which is a game he is very interested in right now. And I was just going to briefly say what my understanding is and then ask him some questions about the game. My understanding of Five Nights at Freddy, or FNAF as it's commonly called, is that it is a horror game that takes place in a defunct pizza restaurant / arcade with some of those Chuck E. Cheese style animatronics that play music. And in the game, the player is a security guard who has to survive 5 nights in the restaurant, avoiding being murdered by the animatronics, whose souls have been replaced by murdered children, and they are controlled to do evil by the original owner, William Afton. What I've also come to understand is that there is a complicated and sometimes convoluted backstory behind the game. And here to help me understand the game is Dylan, who has done a great deal of study into understanding this backstory. So how did I do with my thumbnail description of the game, Dylan?
That was a pretty good description of the franchise. Though some things are questioned to be whether they are canon to the games or if they are just canon to the books or the movie. Because as you would know, the canon and what is true and false in this game is, like you said, very convoluted and confusing.
Okay. Well, how did you first become interested in this game?
Well, it started back when I was little and I heard my friends talking about this really scary horror game called Five Nights at Freddy's. I played it once a couple years ago and I wasn't very interested until recently, a couple months ago, when I had really nothing to think about. Like, I'd finished basically all my TV shows and video game series and I need something new to fixate on. And one of my favorite YouTubers, The Game Theorist, aka Matthew Patrick, or as the community knows him as Matt Pat, made around 80 theories and videos about FNAF, and I just kind of decided I'd watch all of them and get delved into the franchise.
Oh, wow. Okay. So would you say you're an avid player of the game, or are you more interested in the backstory and the lore?
I have played some of the games, and they're pretty fun, but I'm mostly interested on the story aspect. Mm-hmm. I just kind of get the games to get a feel. I just play the games mostly to get sort of a feel for the franchise. But I'm mostly interested on the story.
Okay. Is this a one-player game?
Yes. Also, there are almost like an ungodly amount of books as well. I have not read any of the books, though I have the official character encyclopedia right here.
Okay, nice.
Also, they make a long line of toys, as I have one of them right here.
Yeah.
Of a character called Nightmare Freddy from FNAF 4.
Nightmare Freddy.
But yeah.
Okay. Well, can you give a novice like me the most basic backstory of the main characters in the game?
Okay, so the game mostly centers around two people, honestly. You can kind of determine it to two people, two forces fighting each other. A man named Michael Schmidt, who's the main protagonist, and a man named William Afton, who's the main antagonist. Now, the main backstory of it is there's a man named William Afton and his business partner named Henry, though it's kind of confusing whether there's kind of a big debate whether Henry's last name is Emily or Schmidt. But anyways, that's not important. That won't be important until later. And they run this pizza birthday arcade Chuck E. Cheese style restaurant until, for whatever reason, believably jealousy of his business partner Henry or the loss of his daughter Elizabeth, William Afton goes insane and starts murdering children. And one of those children happens to be his business partner's daughter, and she puts the children's bodies into the animatronics, leading the children to possess them, and you're playing as a character named Michael Schmidt, who I believe is Henry's son, trying to serve as a security guard in the defunct pizzeria, trying to survive 5 nights without being murdered by the animatronics, trying to set their souls free.
Okay. I feel like I already, some of that already went over my head. But
Yes.
would you say that there's a single character in the game that resonates most with you?
If there was a single character in the game that I'd say resonates the most with me, I'd say maybe it's kind of a tie between the crying child or Michael. Michael is a very strange protagonist. He presumably killed his brother on his birthday as a prank, but he did not mean to it. So he's kind of carried the guilt of this accidental murder. And though he's trying to do the right thing, it's kind of confusing whether he's doing it for revenge or to clear up his guilty conscience or just out of the good of his heart. And for some reason, that character really resonates with me as a very strong character. And the crying child is presumably the kid he murdered. And also, I presume that his name is Cassidy, and that he's kind of a lost spirit, sort of trying to get revenge on the man, William Afton, who took basically everything from him, and also having trouble handling his emotions. And
Now, is Michael and Cassidy? I know in the movie we watched, it was his brother who disappeared, right?
yes,
So is Cassidy his brother?
so the families in FNAF are very confusing, but from what I believe, Garrett is the sort of movie version of a character named Evan, who is Michael's brother and was kidnapped by William Afton. Not Cassidy, though. Cassidy was another one of his brothers. He also had a sister, being Charlotte, I believe, though it's kind of controversial whether it's kind of like a big argument between the FNAF community, who's who, and whose family members are who. I believe their father is Henry, and William Afton's child is Elizabeth, because we know that's confirmed.
Okay.
Well, Elizabeth being William's daughter is confirmed, at least in the character encyclopedia.
Okay, and in the movie, there was the police lady,
Yes,
Vanessa, who you think could also be the person you were just talking about.
Yes, Elizabeth?
Elizabeth.
Yeah, okay. So, there's also a character in the games named Vanessa, who looks almost exactly like Vanessa in the movie, who is supposed to be a stand-in for the daughter of William, who was killed by one of his own inventions on accident, which is one of the reasons partly why William went insane, the community theorizes, is the death of his daughter. And there's also a theory that Vanessa is one of the robot replicas of his daughter. As in the franchise, Henry and William, a lot of Henry's children passed away, and to cope with the loss of that, he made robot versions of them. And there's a theory that Vanessa is one of William's robot recreations of his daughter Elizabeth that he lost.
All right. Would you compare the lore of the game as well conceived and thought out as some other fictional stories that you've been interested in?
Yes, I'd say to an extent even more. Though most stories have a clear structure, you can tell the timeline, the characters. FNAF, on the other hand, has really no clear story to it. They give you a lot of pieces, and he kind of leaves it and the creator, Scott Cawthon, leaves it to the community to put those pieces together. And I feel like that's a very inspiring way to tell a story, to let the community
So he
figure
makes
out.
it mysterious on purpose.
Yes.
So that, okay.
To keep people delved into the series, because Matthew Patrick talked about this. So when you're playing like a video game, let's say, and you cannot beat this level, and you just can't do anything else until you beat that level. You're stuck on that. Scott makes the game so mysterious, so you can never stop thinking about it. So it never dies out because there's always a mystery to it. So it always stays on the public's mind. So it never kind of dies out.
Do you feel like it's like you solve one mystery and it seems to open up other mysteries?
Yes, okay. There's always a hole, but I believe I've created sort of a timeline for it that I believe fits.
Okay. Are you drawn to the horror aspect of the game? And are there certain aspects of it that are disturbing to you, considering its premise revolves around murdered children?
So, yes and no. When I first started delving into the franchise, it seemed horrifying to me because the thought of murdered children, possessed Chuck E. Cheese style animatronics, that stuff really scared me. And still, to a point, it is sort of gruesome or gory to me. But the longer you're in the franchise, you kind of become numb to like a part of that. Like, it doesn't seem so horrifying as it was at the beginning. You kind of get used to it after a while.
You get desensitized?
Well, I wouldn't say desensitized, but like the jump scares, the animatronic, the overall story isn't as scary as it was when you first start playing, because you get used to it. You kind of get a knack for it.
Yeah.
Just like when you first start cooking, it's really hard, but then the more you cook, it's kind of easy. Like, it's sort of like training a skill. It's kind of easier to
maybe you sort of remove yourself from the scariness of it by studying it. Kind of gives you a remove from it.
Yeah, and the story, once you get into it, is so crazy that it seems less real than it was at first, which kind of takes a level of the fear off.
Okay, so it seems more fictional.
Yes.
Okay. Do you anticipate that your interest in FNAF will be long-term, or do you think it may wane in time as you go on to explore other types of stories?
So, with most of my hyperfixations, usually they kind of die out after like a month. The only one that's ever compared to this is Pokemon, which I was obsessed with for like a solid year. Though FNAF, it's so complicated. It's so mysterious, so a truth to kind of untangle, that I believe I will still have lots of love for this franchise for possibly years to come.
Okay. So even maybe when your current level of interest is not at the same spot, if you think about it, you come back to it, you'll still be interested.
Yes.
Okay.
Precisely.
Okay. You have recently been attempting to imagine the most comprehensive and less contradictory through line in the lore of the game, and I was wondering if you could possibly maybe give us a condensed version of that.
Okay, a condensed version. So, there are these two families, the Schmidt family and the Afton family.
Okay.
The Afton family is Clara Afton, who's not really important to the story, William Afton, who's the main antagonist, and his daughter Elizabeth. And then there's the Schmidt family, who is Henry Schmidt, the co-founder of Fazbear Entertainment, like William's business partner, Emily Schmidt, who's, like I said, not important to the franchise really, though I theorize she will be eventually, and their 4 children, Evan, Charlotte, Cassidy, and Fritz. Now,
Evan, Cassidy, Charlie, and Fritz.
Yes,
okay.
Charlotte.
Evan, Cassidy, Charlotte, and Fritz. Okay.
Yes. So it kind of all starts in 1983, where William gets so jealous of his business partner Henry that he starts killing his children. Like, first he kidnaps Evan and kills him, and then he kills Charlotte outside the pizzeria. And to cope with this, Henry starts rebuilding Charlotte and named her Charlie, and tries to reinstore memories into her brain and made several versions for her, including one called Circus Baby, which William worked on to capture more children because he realized that Charlotte possessed an animatronic called the Puppet, and that this could eventually lead to immortality. So he used one of the adult versions of the robotic replicas of Charlotte, called Circus Baby, and made it to like trap children. Made a couple other versions of those animatronics called the Fun Times. And his daughter Elizabeth got a little too close to the Circus Baby, and she was killed, which kind of led to him going off the brink.
This is William or?
William.
This is, okay.
And his wife Clara ended up...
But Henry had already been murdering people.
No. William's the murderer.
Henry's the business partner?
Yes. William's the murderer.
Did he start murdering after his daughter died or before?
Before.
I thought you said earlier that maybe he went crazy because his daughter died.
Well, he went crazy because of jealousy, but that kind of added on to it. And he did commit more murders after his daughter did pass away in 1983. And then it kind of all comes to a climax on Henry's son Cassidy's birthday, where Fritz thought it would be a funny little prank to put Cassidy in one of the animatronics' mouth, and it malfunctioned, killing Cassidy, kind of crunching down on his head.
Okay.
And Henry swore to rebuild his son, and William took that as a prime opportunity to kill the children at the birthday party. And their souls, and Charlotte's soul, who was in the puppet, put their bodies in the animatronics, waiting them to possess them. Though Cassidy's body was already in there, and in the comatose state of Cassidy being near dead is FNAF 4. And when Fritz died, Henry also rebuilt him and named him Michael. And Michael's the main character for most of the games. He learned of his he took his father's instructions to go down to his basement and find his sister, Circus Baby. And after he had a near-death experience with the animatronics, he promised to go to every pizzeria and free the souls of his past friends. So he goes pizzeria to pizzeria to pizzeria. And in FNAF 3, he finds William Afton, who had before been gotten into the bunny suit while being chased by the spirits of the children, the bunny suit that he used to murder them, and it kind of failed on him, leaving him to be stuck in that suit. Also before, in 1985, he killed some more children in his second restaurant, and a security guard named Jeremy Fitzgerald had his frontal lobe bitten out by an animatronic called Mangle, resulting in the bite of 87, but that's not really important to the story. And it kind of all culminates in FNAF 6, where Henry had also killed himself and possessed some sort of radio, and he in his own home, and he turned that into a trap pizzeria to lure in all the animatronics, including his son Michael, who robot replica Fritz. And he burned everything down because fire is the only thing that can stop Remnant. But Cassidy would not let William Afton's soul, who is now called Springtrap, go. So he tried to put him in a purgatory. But he escaped and became sort of a computer virus that infected the robot replica of his daughter Vanessa, who we talked about earlier, and lured her to the Pizzaplex, where the robotic replica of Cassidy, Gregory, was also there, and he's trying to kill Gregory while using Vanessa. Cassidy's also there in the arcade system trying to stop William from doing all this. And eventually, the Pizzaplex, which is a giant Fazbear themed arcade, like sort of mall, is destroyed, and Cassidy actually frees Vanessa from the virus, and they leave and escape with Glamrock Freddy, who some people think is possessed by Michael, but I don't really think so. And they escape the Pizzaplex and live happily ever after, but this program called the Mimic which is used to copy people's personalities, decides to copy Gregory's voice and lures his friend Cassie, who's not Cassidy, just some random kid, into the Pizzaplex and tries to kill her, and she ends up falling down the elevator shaft, and it's to be continued.
Oh, wow.
That's kind of where the story ends off.
Okay.
For now. But they're making a new game in December.
Uh-huh. And you think the new game may resolve some of the mysteries or present more?
Yeah, so far the game seems to be it's called Help Wanted 2. It's a sequel to the one where Vanessa was introduced. You know, the one where Vanessa got possessed by the glitch trap virus.
Uh-huh.
And it seems to be Fazbear Entertainment trying to hire more workers to test their VR game, like Vanessa was hired to test the VR game in which she got possessed by the glitch trap virus. And that's kind of all we know about Help Wanted 2 for now.
Yeah.
Until it comes out in December.
Okay. Well, I feel like if there's any listeners that are really avid followers of the game, they would probably have some more questions about what you were just talking of. I personally don't really know specifically what questions to ask. Do you know, if you were listening to this video, what kind of questions do you think you might have about?
Okay, so to most of the franchise, it's commonly believed that William Afton had 3 children, being the crying child, which I say is Cassidy, and Michael and Elizabeth.
Uh-huh.
But my theory is that Michael and the crying child, also, which I think is named Cassidy, are Henry's children. Because the final text to FNAF 4 is, "We are still your friends. Do you believe that? You are broken. I will put you back together again." From some mysterious figure talking through a Fredbear plush, much like this one.
Mm-hmm.
And it's believed that he's his father, which is believed to be William Afton, but it's in yellow. And William Afton's color is purple. The only character associated with yellow or orange is Henry. Not to mention, in this Midnight Motorist game, there's an orange figure who's also believed to be William Afton, coming home with this guy watching TV. And the only character who's seen watching TV in the games is Michael. So that's kind of where it came from. And this kid who escaped out the window, and he said, and the guy saying he's going to be sorry when he gets back home. But I believe that so you see paw prints out the window, like these big claw prints. I believe that that's the moment after Evan was kidnapped by William Afton. And the guy watching TV is Fritz, who was, Michael before he got turned into a robot. And the orange guy isn't William, it's instead Henry. And people also thought Michael and the crying child were William Afton's children because of a little girl's room with nobody in it. And at the time of the franchise, the only girl known was Elizabeth. But now there's another missing girl that was killed named Charlotte, who I believe that little girl's room belonged to. Also, there's kind of a controversy what the crying child's name is. I think it's Cassidy. Some people think Evan. I think the game/book version of Garrett from the movie is named Evan. But there's like a whole big discussion about that.
Oh, I see. Can you tell me what a couple of the major controversies are in the backstory of FNAF?
So, a lot of the people are thrown off by the idea of robot children.
Uh-huh.
That's like a very confusing plot point, and I agree. But it's kind of canon at this point, because in the games, we know at least Charlie is a robot. In this room that's presumed to be Gregory's room, in the Pizzaplex, has weird code on the wall, as if a robot wrote it. Like Gregory being not to mention he looks almost exactly like the crying child, who we know died in 1983. And this takes place far after that, so that cannot be the case. Not to mention, Vanessa got possessed with a computer virus, which seems strange. Like how would you do that unless you're a robot? Like the robot replica of his daughter, Elizabeth. And he wouldn't want to possess just any rando. Why not the robot replica of his own daughter?
Yeah.
Not to mention, Some people think Cassidy and the Crying Child are two different characters possessing one animatronic, which I think is strange, so it would make sense more if Cassidy was the Crying Child. And one of the confusing parts was in Ultimate Custom Night, also known as, William Afton's Purgatory I was talking about, they think Cassidy, not the Crying Child, was torturing him. But why would it just be some random kid when all the others moved on? I think it would make more sense if Cassidy was the Crying Child. Because, why would any just random kid that was killed target their murderer like all the other ones didn't? Unless he killed your brother, your other brother, your sister, drove your father to the point of suicide. Then it would add a little more of a punch to it.
Yeah. So some of what you're talking about reminds me of people's worries about AI currently, computers getting sentience basically, and then I guess Five Nights at Freddy's, they got sentience from, and they're also sort of demonic, right? Like, do you see any comparison in it?
Oh yeah, some people think the glitch trap is actually just a robot, like an AI replicating William Afton. I don't think so. But there is actually an AI replicating William Afton in The Mimic. The Mimic, instead of mimicking Gregory, was at first mimicking William Afton in the form of Burn Trap. Because he got in his suit, in his spring lock suit, and just replicated William Afton's conscience and was pretending to be him. Until he saw Gregory and then started pretending to be Gregory. Who was pretending to be a Cassidy.
Wow. It just goes deeper.
Yeah, not to mention, one of the confusing plot points is, Henry rebuilt his daughter as Circus Baby. William Afton turned that into a thing that could kill children. And his daughter also got possessed the animatronic that was rebuilding Henry's daughter. So now, William Afton's daughter is possessing an animatronic that was meant to replicate Henry's daughter.
Wow. And what did you think of the most recent FNAF movie? And what do you hope to learn in future movies from the franchise?
I think it was really good, though there were some points kind of confusing, because the first game is believed to take place in 1993, and the movie took place in the year 2000, which kind of complicates things in the franchise. But honestly, whether it did take place in 1993 or the year 2000 doesn't seem to make a difference to the franchise, because in the franchise, there's not really any events that happened between 1993 and 2000. So whether the first game takes place in 2000 or 1993 doesn't really matter, but if you're trying to make a stable timeline, it does kind of get confusing. Not to mention, and to the point of that franchise, people believed Michael was William's son, and having Michael be just some random guy, who I believe in the movie is Henry, because it's because you can see a guy that looks almost identical to him working on endoskeleton in one of the training tapes.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and somehow William Afton, in the front says Michael, and he recognizes the last name. And you think, and he knows that Garrett's his brother. And how would he know that unless he knows that last name? He did that on purpose. Also, if you mix up Garrett's name, it says Target, which means he's targeting him on purpose. And why else would he target him unless it's his business partner's son? Not to mention, people believe that Abby was supposed to be a version of Elizabeth, because you mix up her name, it says Baby, which is the animatronic that Elizabeth possesses. But I think Abby's actually the stand-in for Charlotte, because Baby is the robotic replica of Charlotte. So I believe that their father isn't William, and instead Henry. And the movie's proof for that.
Yeah, very interesting. Okay, well, that was the last question that I had for you. Did you have any other final things you wanted to say about FNAF, or any other thing that you're thinking about?
To anybody listening, if you're new to FNAF, I'd just like to add this one thing. FNAF is more than a franchise. It's a mystery. A truth to be uncovered. And the whole fun to it is that there isn't one plot point. It can be anything. whatever you think it could be, if you search hard enough, then that could be the truth. So to anybody listening, don't just take my advice and just believe whatever someone has to say. Search yourself. Find your own truth. And hey, if you want to contact me about any theories, I'm open ears.
Thank you, Dylan. It's been really fun talking with you about this subject, and maybe we can do this again in the future, maybe about different things or more about FNAF, possibly.
Yeah, I like
if you're
that.
open to that.
Yes.
Okay. Well, so that's been my interview with Dylan about Five Nights at Freddy and his knowledge and fascination with the backstory. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.